Yo guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Hendog, today bringing you another video. Since this month is Black History Month, I kind of wanted to talk about the guy who broke the color barrier in the NBA, Earl Lloyd. Now Lloyd wasn't the first non-white player to play in the NBA. That honor goes to Wataru Masaka, but when you type in who broke the color barrier in the NBA into Google, Earl Lloyd's name pops up. He was the catalyst that allowed black players into the league, paving the way for those such as Bill Russell, Michael Jordan, and LeBron James. And now we are at the point where a vast majority of players in the NBA are black, and the sport of basketball is synonymous with black culture. In high school, Earl Lloyd was a standout player at Parker Gray High School, a segregated high school in Alexandria, Virginia, just outside the nation's capital. At Parker Gray, Lloyd was a member of the All-South Atlantic Conference 3 times and the All-State Virginia Interscholastic Conference twice. Lloyd would receive numerous scholarship offers to play basketball at college, but he decided to go to West Virginia State University, a historically black JUCO college, because his high school basketball coach went there. Lloyd was dominant during his time at West Virginia State. In his sophomore season in 1948, the Yellow Jackets were the only undefeated team in the country, going 30-0 and winning the Central Intercollegiate Athletic Association Championship. When his college career was all done, Lloyd earned all-conference honors 3 times, All-American honors twice, and led his team to back-to-back CIAA championships in 1948 and 49. In the 1950 NBA draft, Lloyd was selected in the 9th round with the 100th overall pick by the Washington Capitals. Lloyd wasn't the first black player selected in that draft. Forward Chuck Cooper went 12th to the Boston Celtics. Lloyd credits Red Auerbach and the Celtics management for taking Cooper because he believes he would have never gone drafted by Washington if that hadn't happened.
If the Celtics had not taken Chuck on the second round, I cannot see the Washington Capitals stepping up to make me the first black draftee in the NBA.
That said, it's okay.
It's okay.
Funny enough, Lloyd didn't even realize he got drafted until after the fact. A friend at West Virginia State told him she heard him get drafted on the radio. Lloyd and Cooper weren't the only black players to join the NBA that season, as Nat Sweetwater Clifton signed with the New York Knicks after playing with the Harlem Globetrotters for a few years. Because of the scheduling of the games, Earl Lloyd was the first black player to play in an NBA game on October 31st, 1950, when the Washington Capitals would face the Rochester Royals. The Capitals would lose that game 78-70, but Lloyd scored 6 points on 2 of 3 shooting with a team-high 5 assists. There are reports speculating that he grabbed a game-high 10 rebounds that night, but the game log on Basketball Reference doesn't have the rebounds listed, so we don't know for certain how many Lloyd had. Despite the major significance of the event, it wasn't mentioned in any major newspaper, and even Lloyd commented on how normal the game felt.
If you had to pick a place to play this first game for a black player in the NBA, if you want a place where a little controversy and that kind of stuff, Rochester, New York was the right place. It's cold up there, nobody hates anybody when it's wintertime.
Rochester, the location of Lloyd's first game, had already integrated their college and high schools, so it was an ordinary sight for Royals fans. Lloyd played 7 games that season before being drafted again, this time for the Army, and would serve in Korea during the Korean War. Lloyd would come back to the NBA for the 1952-53 season, but since his team, the Washington Capitals, folded, Lloyd would sign with the Syracuse Nationals. In Syracuse, Lloyd would establish himself as a scrappy player who would guard the opposing team's best player and fight for rebounds. In 1955, Lloyd would have his best individual season, averaging 10 points and 7.5 rebounds, being a key piece on a championship team. That year, Lloyd made history again, as he and teammate Jim Tucker became the first black players to win an NBA championship. Hall of Famer and teammate Dolph Schayes said Earl Lloyd was instrumental for that 1955 Nationals team. Without Earl, we would have never won that title. Earl was the guy who covered the other team's best player, and his strengths were rebounding, defense, and battling the boards. Head coach Al Cheery commented on Lloyd's impact. He's an unsung star. Anybody can score, but Lloyd was an excellent defensive player. That was number 1 on my roster. After 6 seasons with the Nationals, Lloyd would end his career with the Pistons. In total, Earl Lloyd played 8 full seasons in the NBA, averaging 8.5 points and 6.5 rebounds. He wasn't a great scorer, but found a place in the league as someone who would guard the other team's best player and grab rebounds. Lloyd was still involved in the NBA after his playing days were done. He would serve as a scout for the Detroit Pistons and was responsible for acquiring Hall of Famer Dave Bing. He would go on to break NBA history again as he became the first black assistant coach in NBA history, and in 1971, he would become the second black head coach in NBA history when the Pistons hired him to be their head coach. He wouldn't even coach for a full season, going 22-55 during his time in Detroit. Lloyd commented on his time coaching in the NBA. "Coaching is only fun if you win." Then he chuckled, saying, "I didn't win, it wasn't fun." Lloyd said he never felt hatred from players and coaches as they were accustomed to integration in basketball from the collegiate level. He fondly remembers certain stories about his teammates and coaches treat him when the rest of the white world seemed to hate him. He remembers when he talked to a white adult for the first time in his life when he came to the NBA, and how that player, Hall of Famer Bill Sharman, would serve as a beacon of light. When Bill Sharman passed away in 2013, Earl Lloyd had to say this about his former teammate: I've been asked of all the players from those days, if there's one I admired the most, let me tell you, it was Bill Sharman. He was my friend, and think of what that meant at the time. Lloyd told how Sharman would drive him to and from practice every day so that Lloyd didn't have to take the bus. There's another story from Lloyd's rookie year where a diner refused to serve Lloyd, so he had to eat his food in his hotel room. The Capitals head coach at the time, Horace Bones McKinney, joined Lloyd in his room to eat dinner with him. Lloyd, reflecting on that story, said Bones was from Wake Forest, North Carolina, the deep South, and had been raised in the South during the 30s and 40s. You know he didn't have to do that. Things like that you don't forget. Just because players and coaches respected him as a person doesn't mean Lloyd didn't experience racism from fans. At his first NBA game, 2 fans were sitting behind Lloyd's parents. When they were announcing the starting lineup, one fan asked the other fan, "Do you think this N-word can play any basketball?" When Lloyd was on the Nationals, he and teammate Red Kerr were celebrating a victory in Fort Wayne. They were celebrating the win, and Kerr had his arm around Lloyd. Kerr then says Fort Wayne fans were spitting on them, not because they had won the game, but because, quote, they were spitting on Earl. In the 1952-53 preseason, Lloyd wasn't allowed to play in a game at Wofford College in South Carolina because he was black. Lloyd would experience all sorts of discrimination during his playing days. Multiple fans would tell him to, quote, go back to Africa, and he would hear all sorts of racial slurs and be denied entrance at certain hotels and restaurants. But the fans didn't faze Lloyd on the court. His parents told him to, quote, never dignify ignorance, and he used the name calling as fuel for his play. My philosophy was if they weren't calling you names, you weren't doing anything. You made sure they were calling you names if you could. If they were calling you names, you were hurting them. Although both players broke the color barrier for their respective sports, Earl Lloyd said on multiple occasions that the comparisons between him and Jackie Robinson are not the same. People compare me with him and I say, don't do that. When you compare with what I went through to what he went through, you do him a terrible injustice. Here's a guy who was all by himself, man. He had to battle his own team, his own fans. He got spiked, beamed, and there was no retribution. And he's playing first base, and a guy who's harassing him is in left field. The public generally didn't care about basketball, while baseball was this grand old game, and Jackie Robinson was considered an invader, a threat. It's an honor, but I don't deserve that comparison. Jackie was unique. What he went through, no one should have to go through. After his time in the NBA, Lloyd worked various jobs in the Detroit area, giving back to the community. He served on the Detroit Board of Education, while also being the director of programs for underprivileged children teaching job skills. After that, he was a recruiter of young black executive talent for Chrysler and became the first black executive in the Dodge division. Finally, he was the community relations director for the Bing Group, a steel and automotive parts group owned by former Detroit Piston Dave Bing. After his retirement in 1999, he resided in Fairfield Glade, Tennessee, where he would enjoy jazz music and follow the NBA before passing away on February 26, 2015 at the age of 86. He was inducted in the Hall of Fame in 2003 for his efforts as a pioneer in the sport of basketball. Teammates and those who played in Lloyd's era always commented on how great of a person he was. He was a humble person and full of kindness when the world around him hated him simply for the color of his skin. He never cared that he never got the recognition and attention Jackie Robinson achieved. He did whatever he could to be the best version of himself. Here's what some of the people from his era said about Earl Lloyd. Earl was a great teammate. He's also a great guy and a hero. Johnny Red Kerr, former teammate and longtime Chicago Bulls commentator. He softened the bed for the rest of us. Al Attles, NBA champion head coach with the Golden State Warriors.
Real class guy. And back then, he didn't have it easy. But he was well respected here, and rightfully so.
I'm so pleased about Earl in the Hall of Fame. He was always one of my favorite players over the years. I appreciate what he said about me. I'm just very, very pleased, very honored to be his friend. He was always so easygoing, so fun-loving, and a very good basketball player. Bill Sharman, Hall of Famer and 4-time NBA champion. During his time at Syracuse, Lloyd would also routinely entertain black players from visiting teams, such as Elgin Baylor of the Lakers, as a means of comfort and fraternity because many restaurants and clubs remain closed to Americans of color. Although the name of Earl Lloyd still isn't recognized by most NBA fans, he's starting to garner the long overdue recognition he deserves. Back in 2017, there was a documentary on the life of Earl Lloyd called The First to Do It that was executively produced by current and former NBA players in Kawhi Leonard, Carmelo Anthony, Tony Parker, and Michael Finley. I tried watching the documentary as research for this video, but all remnants of it have disappeared. The YouTube channel only features the trailer. The Twitter page has no use. The official website, the firsttodoit.com website, is no longer available. The domain is shut down. So I don't know what happened. All remnants just shut down of it. And it wasn't like it was this niche underground project. It had the backing of former NBA All-Stars and other celebrities. It was previewed at the Sundance Film Festival, which is the biggest film festival for independent movie creators. The people working on it have worked on ESPN 30 for 30s. But for some reason, all remnants of this documentary are just gone. I've tried looking everywhere for it. So if somehow someone in the comments is able to find it, or someone watching this is able to find it, that'd be huge. But I have had no success finding it. Hey guys, this is Hendog, and during the editing process, I actually found 2 clips from the documentary that aren't the trailer that last about 16 minutes on Vimeo. Yeah, I know, that's janky as it is, but I found them. They're pretty interesting to watch. Like I said before, it's still not the full documentary. If anyone's interested in seeing those clips, I'll link them down in the description box. But yeah, if you somehow do have access to the full documentary in its entirety, I'd really appreciate it if you would, send them my way. But like I said before, this thing is like completely gone off the internet. So that'll do it for me. If you enjoyed the video, like it, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.
I want to thank everyone who helped me along that journey. And what you really did, you took a question mark in Alexandria and made it an exclamation mark in Springfield.